Today we are starting our trip in Lincoln, Nebraska. I coach track at Wichita State, and we had a meet in Lincoln, Nebraska, and so I'm going to be heading back to Kansas, and thought I'd do a small town, downtown exploration. These are videos where we just kind of cruise through the downtown, give you little fun facts about the town, and then we try to find 10 of them, and then at the end of the video, rank them 1 through 10. You should keep track at home as well, see if our rankings match up. And the rules are towns got to be less than 5,000 people. They have to be incorporated, and they're not towns that I have previously done a video about. They might be towns I do a video about in the future. And this, we're just gonna, like I said, cruise through, have a fun little Sunday drive, and then rank them at the end. So let's head out of Lincoln and see what we can find between Lincoln and the Kansas border. Roca is in Lancaster County. It's platted in 1876, and the post office was opened 18 years later, 1894. Roca is Spanish for stone because the chief industry in the area is stone quarrying. Population peaked in the year 2000 at 220, following the census that had its lowest total of 84 in 1990. We stay in Lancaster County for Hickman. It was founded and incorporated in 1885, but prior to 1885 it was actually known as Heckman, H-E-C-K, after founder Reverend C.H. Hickman. Hickman was platted in 1872 along a proposed railroad site. When it was submitted to the county for recording, it was misspelled as Hickman with an I. Population was steady from 300 to 400 until 1980, when it started to go up dramatically and is now at 2,607. One more town in Lancaster County is Firth. It was settled in the early 1870s as the railroad was being extended. Post office started in 1872 and was named for Frank Firth, superintendent of the Atchison and Nebraska Railroad. Incorporated in 1879, and the population between 230 and 384 from 1880 to 1980, and then has doubled since up to 649 today. Now over to Gage County, Nebraska for Cortland. This was platted in 1884 when the railroad was extended here. That's a very common thing in all these towns. An early name for this community was Galesburg. Cortland was named after Cortland, New York. Interestingly, the first census in 1890 and the most recent one in 2020 is almost exactly the same population, with it declining until 1960 to 185 before making its comeback. One more town in Gage County here is Clatonia. It was platted in 1892 when the railroad was extended here, although a German settlement had existed in this area since 1869 prior to Clatonia. It was incorporated in 1893, named after Clay Creek, which was named after politician Henry Clay. Population has been very consistent since the early days of the community. Drop down to Saline County for the next town of DeWitt, established in 1872 when the railroad came through here. Originally named Denison for the Secretary of the Land Company, then as a leader of the town, he renamed it DeWitt for his friend Reverend DeWitt Talmage. Population peaked early in its days at 751 in 1890 and has generally gone down slightly, but still has a respectable population of 530. Our next town of Plymouth, Nebraska is in Jefferson County. Originally, it was founded 3 miles away in 1872 by a colony of settlers from New England who named it after Plymouth, Massachusetts. The town was moved to this location in 1884 to line up with, you guessed it, the railroad. And except for the 1900 census, the town has had a population between 348 and 506, with the most recent one at 364. Staying in Jefferson County, this is Jansen, Nebraska. It was platted in 1886 when the railroad came through, named after local rancher and politician Peter Jansen. Population was at its highest in the early days of the community at 308 in 1910 and has continued to dwindle to its lowest point of 101 in the most recent census of 2020. We're in the town square of Fairbury, Nebraska, which is the county seat of Jefferson County. It was platted in 1869 on the planned route of the St. Joseph and Denver City Railroad. It was named after one of the founders' hometown of Fairbury, Illinois. They incorporated in 1872 when the railroad eventually came through. In 1886, the Chicago, Rock Island, and Pacific Railroad reached town, and it was designated as the headquarters of the railroad's Western Division. Population then grew dramatically and peaked in 1950 at 6,395 and has gone down every census since then to 3,970 today. Our final town is also our smallest. This is Hubbell, as we are now in Thayer County. It was platted in 1880 when the railroad reached the area, named for the original owner of the town site, Hubbell Johnson. Population was highest in its early years, peaking at 375 in 1900, and has declined to only 63 today. That was another great batch of small towns there in southeast Nebraska. You know, there was some very small towns, and then obviously we had a big county seat. And so as I was looking through them, trying to figure out my rankings, it was tough to come up with my top 3, and it might not seem fair, but I'm gonna go with Fairbury as my number 1. It's much bigger than almost all the other towns, but it did, if you're gonna visit any of the towns and check out the historic downtown area, Fairbury has gotta be, for me, at the top of the list. But now, on the next one, I'm gonna go the other way. I'm gonna go with the smallest town on the list, Hubbell, which was that last one. Only like 60 people. It had to have the most kind of cool old buildings per capita of the entire list, and I really enjoyed it. It had a great historical feel down there. So hopefully they can make that into a nice little area, and if they keep working on it. So there's not very many people left to work on it, but I definitely recommend checking that out. It's a little bit out of the way, but if you're ever down there, go check out Hubbell. And my third one, this was really close. I had to go through some different thought processes to come up with it. But I'm gonna go with another very small town in Jansen. And I just, once again, per capita, they had a lot of great old buildings, and they had a water tower that was nicely painted in the downtown area. But Plymouth and Witt and Clatonia, there was a lot of them that were real close. It could have been in the top 3. What's your list? What does your list look like? Here's the rest of my top 10, and it was a lot of fun checking out these towns. I know I don't go like super in depth in these towns, but I definitely took some notes, and I might be visiting a few of these towns again later to do more in-depth videos. Our last little town of Hubbell has so many cool old buildings, and yes, a death go round. Very heavy, you can get a lot of people on there. Spins pretty well, especially since it's half frozen here. I love it. 9 out of 10.